I don't know about y'all, but that song, like, it gets me like pumped. I mean, I already bring a certain like pumpedness, excitement every Sunday because I'm like
Always.
I get to talk with Mars, and this is just I get to talk comics. I get to see all the people in the community coming in, hanging out. But it's a Halloween show. It's Halloween
Halloween.
today.
It's Halloween. I'm so
It's
excited.
Halloween. You are dressed up so beautiful. You clearly like you had an idea. I know that you've been like planning this costume. You like did your due diligence, and I'm just here. I'm like, I'm gonna put on a Swamp Thing shirt.
Listen, I love this outfit
Yeah,
so much. Like, y'all have watched my magical journey this year as I've like dived headfirst into my obsession. Because I think that's what it is at this point. My
yeah.
obsession with Scarlet Witch and with Wanda Maximoff. And it's like, you know what? I kind of want to be her. And I'm going to tell you right now, putting on this crown, I have never felt so powerful in my entire life. Like, I kind of just want to wear it like all the time. All the
Yeah.
time. And I wore, so I told you this backstage, but I wore this outfit to work and I also wore it out to a very fun drag show last night. And every time somebody would ask me, especially in my office, you know, who are you? Because, you know, I work with a bunch of older people that I don't really know. You know, I'd be like, oh, I'm a mentally ill witch on the verge of a mental breakdown, which is true for both characters. So, you know, it's fine.
Is Mars wearing the Scarlet Witch costume, or is Scarlet Witch wearing the Mars
That
costume?
is the magical question of the day.
Yeah. I love it. It makes me I don't really have plans for Halloween other than my partner is retrieving donuts for me possibly today, some like Halloween themed donuts. And I
Ooh.
told them, I'm like, hey, surprise me, but hey, there's also a pumpkin patch. Like your girl is feeling a pumpkin patch this year, so we'll see. We may end up going out to a club. I don't know. We'll see.
It'd be very exciting.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and there are 19 people. So thank you all for being here. I want to say hello to everyone. And please give a howdy in the chat. Please, tell me what your plans are for Halloween. Tell me what you're dressed up as or what you would like to be dressed up as. Even if, I don't know, you could tell me that you're dressed up as something and I can't verify. So hello to our friend Brandon, Comics Kings, and hello to White Shadow. Happy Spooky Day. Big old howdy to our friend Travis TM Nerdy, who seriously one of the best people in this community. I mean, like you all are, but seriously, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for Ab Fab. Heck yeah, ooh,
Ooh, ab
dig
fab,
it.
heck yeah.
Yeah. And then hello to DC Patrol. Let's see here. We've also got Wednesday Spoiler. What up? And then hello to our friend Scott. How's it going? Another Portland friend. And let's see here. JD Barry. Hello. Thank you for being here. JT. Happy Halloween. And hello, that comic girl. Happy Halloween, ghouls and ghosts. I love it. Happy Halloween, everyone, says John Big Daddy Ross. And then our friend Gabby, the fantastic girl. Hello, hello. Let me see here. We've got actual Dracula. Happy Halloween. You were hanging out with my friend Dan the other day, talking about, I forget what y'all were talking about, but probably comics related. Miss So, hello. Love the costume, Mars. Very cute. And then we've got Sean, Puff Comics, Happy Halloween. Chris from Radio of Horror, hello from Salem. Thank you for being here. Just so much love for the costume, Mars. So that is absolutely
Please
excellent.
validate me. Thank you.
Yes. Let's see here. Once again, Mars is killing it with the costume. Well done. Yeah, seriously. Let's see here. And then Rob. Hello, Rob G. Thank you for being here once again. Love the outfit. Happy Samhain. Thank you. And then hello to Kaiser Jose. Thank you. I feel like I'm forgetting someone. All of you will just have to just say hello again in the chat. I do see this one here. Oh, shoot. It was Niall. There it is. Hello, everyone, and happy Halloween. I'll go ahead and I'll leave that one up here. So, as we normally do, it's Halloween. I don't necessarily have any like Halloween themed stuff as far as news. there was some news in the industry though.
There was.
What's up in the industry? What's going
There
on?
was some news, or maybe it was more of a joke. I think it's more of a joke, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah.
So last week there was a certain individual who will remain nameless. He who shall not be named. No, it is not Lord Voldemort. He might as well be though at this point. Let's be honest. They went on to their very public live stream and were coming up with very strange conspiracy theories. Now, this is not something out of the ordinary for this individual. However, this one, it's kind of great. And the conspiracy theory of this week or this month or this year is that the government is funneling money into DC Comics and to Marvel Comics, respectively, for the sake of the gay agenda. Yeah. And to make comics more gay. And I just think that this is hilarious because it's just the most ridiculous thing that I have ever heard. First of all, the government is not going to be the one to give money to make things more gay. It's just not going to happen. Have you seen our government? It's not going to happen.
I feel like it's me. Like
it's all your dumb bitch money being funneled into Marvel and DC.
Yeah, this like go woke and I will go broke because I'm giving all my money to it. And I have seen in the past where especially because a lot of like superhero comics, especially from the beginning, there were a lot of people who were in like military service. So I feel like a lot of that like influenced maybe the background stories of characters, or maybe like this military agenda, especially thinking about like these characters like Captain America punching Hitler. Like, so of course, like I do think that there is this like little bit of relationship between like the military and comics, but this like loose thread where it's like the government is giving comics people money for the woke gay agenda. Us as queer strange. People, like give us money, like
give me money.
Give queer people money, like sure. I think a lot of that speculation is just that, right? It's a speculation. It's just loose threads. But then where I have seen things like maybe a commercial that uses Captain Marvel as the framework for being like, hey, join the Air Force. So the government certainly does give money. I don't necessarily know. Like, I don't think that anyone who's involved with like writing those things are necessarily being given money by the government. But you do see like these, like I said, kind of like maybe loose threads where you can like Charlie Day it and pull it all together. But
not to the extent that this individual is doing. Also, I like Kaiser's comment of Liefeld is the Voldemort of comics.
Yeah.
Liefeld is not the Voldemort of comics, and here's why. Liefeld is the Beetlejuice of comics, because if you say Liefeld's name, he will show up. Like, you just reference his name and he knows. And if you say it 3 times, he's showing up at your front door.
Funny, I feel like you cannot escape talking about Rob Liefeld whatsoever. And it's funny because Scott, we got a chance to hang out on Wednesday, and of course Rob Liefeld comes up. Did you know that Rob Liefeld, I didn't know this, Rob Liefeld was in like a jeans commercial?
I did not, but it makes a lot of sense.
So
it makes a lot of sense.
Anyways, that's my comic book trivia that I learned this week, is that Rob Liefeld was in a jeans commercial. Yeah. That's kind of all the news. I feel like more will come up. I don't know if anyone else has any other news, maybe about shows or things like that. Have you watched any movies, watched any shows, like any like spooky themed stuff you've been watching?
Listen, I'm spooky 365, 24/7, all the time, every day. So I guess like the only big thing that I've really been watching is What We Do in the Shadows. It is like it's my comfort show at this point.
Yeah.
I love that show so much. If you haven't started watching it, please do immediately. It is literally like your typical docu sitcom type show. So think The Office or Parks and Rec, but it follows supernatural beings and it follows vampires and werewolves, and it's just fucking hilarious. Okay. And it's my favorite thing ever.
Have you watched the original movie?
Of course.
Okay, thank you. Because there are some people who I've like been like, oh, I love the show, but like the movie gets my heart. And so some people didn't know that there was even a movie. And Taika Waititi, 100% daddy, zaddy energy. I need to figure out like what the clear defining difference between, maybe it's like a zany daddy, because I feel like ooh. So anyways, Taika Waititi, 100% zaddy energy for me. I have been last night I started watching something, and I feel like I couldn't finish watching it, but I think it was because I was mostly just like doom scrolling through TikTok. So
as one does.
This time of year I feel like I'm going back to the classics for me. Like Rocky Horror Picture Show is like that like quintessential classic for me, so I feel like that deserves another rewatch. I love Candyman, so want to go back and rewatch the original, because I did watch the new one recently, and that was absolutely fantastic. So those are like some of my favorites.
Those are some of your favorites.
Yep. So if I want to say hello to Queen G, she's absolutely fantastic. Say hello to your beautiful, beautiful, beautiful wife. She's amazing. We've read comics this week. We bought comics.
I read a lot of comics, and I'm feeling very feisty.
These are the comics that I didn't read. And then these are the comics that I did read, plus the, I'm not going to read the variant, so about half and half here. It's funny because you're like, I read like 11 comic books, and I liked maybe 1-2 of them.
That's being generous too. I don't know if it was, maybe I was in a bad mood this week, because sometimes things happen, but I think, I don't know, I feel like part of me is like, as we've been doing this show for a year, as we've been, diving into comics and looking into comics and dissecting them, I'm finding myself to be a lot more critical and a lot more hypercritical with that. I don't know if maybe that's just me getting old and bitter as a comic fan, or if it is just a matter of, like I said, doing the show and, dissecting things a little bit further than I would normally.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, and I think that like too, it all depends on like maybe where you start, like where does your journey start? And I think that Greg, Bearded Comic Bro, once called me out because I was like, yeah, for me, I started my comics journey with stuff like The Sandman and like these heavy books from Vertigo. And he was like, no, I wouldn't start with that. And I'm like, what? Are you fucking kidding me? And then I'm like, well, I do get your point, because it is heavy. Like maybe start with some other stuff. And I know even you, I was like, girl, this is my favorite book. I'm sending you a copy. Please read it with us. And you broke my heart and said you didn't like it and that you couldn't finish it.
I couldn't even finish it. It was just,
yeah.
And I think part of it is a product of the times, because as I've stated, several times on here before and in other places, I personally find it very hard, for me at least, to read books outside of modern comic books. And with Sandman being written in the 80s, it definitely has that style of the times, and it's very dense in its own way. So I'm excited about the show, and I feel like when the show comes out, I'm going to be a lot more into it. A part of me also thinks that, maybe if I were to jump into some of the, okay, listen, I got it. Hold on. I am trying. Sorry. I am trying my hardest. My partner, I know you are listening, dressed up as Quentin Quire, which is very cute. A very cute cosplay at that. But listen, Scarlet Witch can't go kissing on Quentin Quire. So I gave them 2 options, because we sat at the bar last night trying to see who else, Scarlet Witch has been with other than Vision, because the face paint, I'm gonna be honest, it's a lot, it's hard. And I'm like, well, hear me out. # hear me out. Dr. Doom. I can smooch Dr. Doom.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like, a lot of people would do that, like, especially because of WandaVision. And that's like, I don't know, I like that romance. I like both. But I could see Dr. Doom.
Why not both? And just rotate. It's fine. But back to Sandman. So part of me is like, well, maybe if I tried some of the more modern stories that we've gotten in recent years from like Vertigo and DC Black Label. So we had The Waking and The Dreaming.
Yeah, there's the dreaming waking hours. So there's this whole like Sandman universe. The dreaming was a really good one, but then there was also, let's see, there was the dreaming, there was a new like Constantine Hellblazer. There was also House of Whispers, which was
Mm-hmm.
really fun.
Now, are these books that I could read without reading Sandman, or do I need that Sandman background?
I think that you could read them. I think that especially the dreaming, that was a really good one.
Okay.
I really enjoyed that one a lot. And of course, like Constantine Hellblazer, you can do that one.
Of course.
Even House of Whispers, I felt like it reminded me a lot of like the American Gods, Anansi Boys.
Hmm.
So American Gods was like it's probably up there for like one of my favorite books by Neil Gaiman, and definitely helped get me like into his comics. So I think it does go through a little bit more of that mythology. So yeah, I think that you could. I think that you'd like House of Whispers, and that one is done. The artwork is done by Bill Quist Evely, I think, who's
Ooh.
doing Supergirl with
Supergirl right
Tom
now.
King.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I do get that, especially that first volume of Sandman, it may not be it. I really think if you haven't done so, possibly try to read the Midsummer's Night Dream um, issue of
Mm-hmm.
Sandman, because that's a classic one, and maybe even any of the Death comics. I think that you might appreciate more
Mm-hmm. And
than
that
the
was my
actual.
thing. Is like the whole time I'm like sitting there and I'm waiting for her to show up.
She doesn't show up till the very
She
end of
doesn't show
volume
up until
one.
the end, and I
Yeah.
was like flipping through it. And I'm like, I tried for her. I tried, and I think I gave up about halfway through. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm struggling. It's a struggle out here.
Yeah.
So maybe one day.
Yeah. One day. I will bully you into it the same way.
You've already bullied me into Hoxpox.
So hold up. I think that we need to do like a new segment of the show where we do like Hoxpox report. Where are you on Hoxpox?
I have not moved on Hoxpox. It has been a very week. To be fair, I get some credit and some slack because I had Baltimore Comic Con, so I was planning for that. And then this week was Halloween, so I was getting out some videos for Halloween, some content for Halloween. So next week things slow down. Cause listen, every time my partner's around, I get asked the same thing. So how much of Hoxpox have you read? And I'm like, did Jen put you up to this? What is going on?
It's like that conspiracy theory where it's like, is the government paying you money to be what? Like I'm paying Niles. Like every time I just like cash app and I'm like, yo, like here's $5. Ask Mars how much of Hoxpox that she's read.
That's exactly what's been going on. So as of next week, I will continue to read Hoxpox, and yes, we can have a new segment on the channel that's Hoxpox report.
Yeah, like report from Krakoa, something like that.
From Krakoa.
To be determined. We'll figure all that out. It looks like there's a little bit of love. So Travis says, love the show. It's funny because, like I said, American Gods is one of my favorite books. I could not get into the show, which was kind of disappointing. But I know that I need to go back and try to rewatch the show. So, let's talk comics. Let's finally do it. It only took us 20 minutes, but we're finally going to talk.
There was a lot of comics this week. So friends, as always, we put it out to you. Do we start with DC? Do we start with Marvel? Do we start with indie? Which there wasn't a whole lot of indie this week, it felt like.
Once again, because I didn't read like half my stack, I apologize, but I feel like my pile is always indie heavy. So
let's start with, as the crowd is deciding on DC, Marvel, or indie, what did you not read that you picked up this week?
Okay. So a couple things. I'm going to pull up this one, Nita Ha's Nightmare blog, because I finally got this. I haven't read it yet, but looking forward to it. Echolands, haven't read this one yet. I've really been loving that series. Adventure Man, I feel like after the hiatus from like volume 1 into this arc, I haven't been as excited to read it. Let's see, Black Hammer Reborn. I think that I haven't read issue 4 yet, so I need to go back and do that. This one, Cross to Bear by Aftershock, looked pretty good. It's like Victorian something or other, so that looks fun. Sorry, I'm trying to get all of my Dungeons and Dragons Mindbreaker. And let's see here. I actually haven't even read. Oh my goodness, there's so much Marvel in this stack. Why did I do
She's
this?
slacking, friends.
I am. So for some of the DC books that I did not read, Deep Target, Aquaman, Green Arrow. I didn't read this one. Did you read it? You
I
have
did.
a look on your face.
I
Okay.
did.
Wonder Girl. Haven't read it yet. Did you read that one?
I did.
Oh my god. Okay. Aquaman, The Becoming, issue 2. I don't think you're reading that one. Are you?
Aquaman, no, I'm not.
Okay. And then Task Force Z is one of the ones I didn't read from DC. Did you read that one?
I did.
Oh my god. Okay.
It's okay.
And,
I got you. It's fine.
oh my goodness. And then to complete out, because I know I pulled some indies, I actually picked up Pirate Queen #2 because there was an issue, and I'm like, let me go ahead and pick it up. I'll give Peter Milligan another chance, even though I wasn't crazy about issue 1. Swamp Dogs. This one looked pretty good. It's a Black Caravan, which is a Scout imprint. And then Nobody's Child, issue 2, by Behemoth. I actually really liked this title. Issue 1 was good. And then The Winchester Mystery House by Source Point Press. Kind of surprised I picked that one up, but I think it was a pre-order. So those were all the indies that I did not read. And then
She's
here,
killing me, y'all.
yeah, so here for the Marvel that I haven't read, I'm telling you, it's a lot of stuff that I didn't read yet. Inferno, still haven't read that yet.
How are we going to talk about the show today?
I know. Moon Knight #4, Darkhold Blade, Black Widow, Sword, Marauders, X-Force, and Daredevil. Those are all the ones I didn't read. I'm telling you, I was slacking, everyone.
Please let the record show everybody that Jen didn't read a single comic that I read this week, and I am very scared and very confused because I had a lot of questions about Inferno that I needed answered this week.
Oh no.
And the fact that I read Inferno, but Jen didn't.
Yeah. I think the reason why is because I do a show on Friday. Like I told you that I did a couple shows this week. So the show that I did on Friday, we pick like 5 books that were like, okay, these are the books that I'm going to read. And I try to prioritize that. And so I read all the ones that we read for the show. Inferno wasn't on it. So
slacking.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
So we have one comment from Azorius Tiger Comics that says DC Marvel Indie. So I guess that's how we should go. And maybe we should just talk about the one book that you did read, because otherwise Mars is going to go on a rant because you didn't read any of the books that I did.
You said we're going to do DC, and then we're going to do Marvel, and then we're going to do Indie. I haven't read
Indie.
I haven't read any Marvel this week. Like that's why that Marvel stack was so thick. So these are the books that I actually read this week. So
I can be quick. It's fine.
Okay, so DC first, right? I did read a couple DC.
There's one book I know that we both read, so I think maybe we should hit that one right off the bat, and then we can go back and forth and alternate. DC versus Vampires. So there was supposedly a lot of cool like horror themed stuff coming out from DC this week, but how do I go off the bat? I hated this book. It was stupid. I did not have fun. I wanted more from it, especially when we got books like Deceased, which is zombies. This felt lackluster in comparison. It felt very, very boring. There was no world building. I do think that there was a neat little twist in this that kind of came out of left field, but when it happened, I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. And then... I'm just going to spoil it because it was my favorite part of the issue.
Spoiler alert. There's a
spoiler alert. Hal Jordan is revealed to be a vampire, and he sticks one of the Wonder Twins into a blender and blends him up and drinks his blood, which I thought was fucking hilarious. That was the highlight of this issue, was that. There was not enough vampires. There was absolutely, listen, I was lied to, okay? I was promised Green Arrow. And we got like a snippet of Green Arrow in the shadows, and that was it. And I was very depressed. Very depressed.
I really went into this with no expectations and not necessarily thinking of comparing it to Deceased, but I was definitely thinking about comparing it to like Marvel versus Zombies. And that one was what it was, but I liked the artwork in this. I will say that. Like, I think that,
Otto Schmidt is amazing.
but there are moments where it's almost off-putting because you'll have like moments like or artwork that looks like this, and then all of a sudden it like the tone changes, and I understand why they did that, but it almost feels jarring. Because it does, go back and forth a little bit. But I did like the artwork. Was it necessarily spooky to me? No, it was more, of course, it's going to be like, we're going to solve a crime, I guess.
Basically, we're going to solve a crime, but with vampires.
But with vampires.
It just was not, it wasn't fun. I did not have a good time.
And for me, something like this, like, could have easily had just, I feel like I've been saying this a lot, but this could have easily have been a one-shot DC label, like, prestige format, like give me magazine size. It could have easily been that and just been a one-shot, one and done. But now it's 1 of 12. So are we going to be getting a DC versus vampires until next Halloween?
Next Halloween.
And I'm not excited for that. Like, I think that if you were really going to do that, DC, and maybe this will bring into another book, I would have loved to have seen that with fucking Batman Long Halloween. Think if we had gotten that, like, calendar.
Ooh.
And done that for Batman Long Halloween. And done that. 12 issues.
Speaking of, it sounds like you must have read Batman Long Halloween. How was that?
I liked it. It dealt with Two-Face and Gilda. It was a nice little... I think at the end it does go like the end ? But I thought it was cute. I just really appreciate the team up again, like the classic Long Halloween team up from Tim Sale, Jeff Loeb. Okay, sorry. So at the end it says the end for now. So we'll see. I love the artwork. I love this style.
Tim Sale's fantastic.
Yeah, and this type of book. So when I was getting into comic books, Long Halloween was probably the first Batman book that I had read. And so there's, for me, a nostalgia about that era where, it feels like they're actually fighting like crime bosses and they're fighting a villain other than the Joker, which I appreciate. So yeah, that's what I want more of. Yeah, it was good. It was just a nice little one shot for Halloween. Did you read this one?
I did not. I did not even pick it up because I have sour feelings about Jeff Loeb, so I try to stay away from his work now.
Yeah. That's all the DC that I read this week. So.
Oh, I read so much more DC, so I'll try to run through them really quick.
Yeah. I was gonna say doesn't have to be quick.
Robin #7. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't my favorite issue either. It's continuing the arc of the trial of souls, and he's going to be the last man standing. We basically know how this is going to play out. It's a matter of how it plays out, though. So I'm really confused because I feel like this whole book should end at issue 8, but there's no 1 of 8, 7 of 8. There's no defining ending number. So I'm really confused if this is going to be just a long ongoing, and maybe this is just a very long arc, because we're already at issue 7 and we're still within the same arc, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
Isn't there going to be like a new updated Robins, or isn't there like a new?
There's a new Robins, and it's supposed to follow, Red Hood. It's going to follow Tim Drake, basically everybody who's ever had the Robin mantle. But I don't think it has to deal with this or coincides with this. Wonder Girl #4. This book, I feel like, is slowly disappointing me because, as I've said, I think with every issue, Future State 1 and 2 were so solid. They were so fast-paced. And this
fast-paced.
This feels like it is so slow. In this issue, we kind of get to see Yara Flor and how she becomes Yara Flor. In this issue, she does get her costume. She does get her sword. We do get the origin of Jerry, which I thought was going to be a little bit more exciting. But I feel like one of the biggest problems with this is there have been so many release delays with Yara Flor Wonder Girl. Yeah. It feels like we're now getting issues like every other month or every 2 months rather than every month. And it feels like I don't know. It just feels like, because it's a slow book and because I'm already getting delays on top of it, it's not nearly as enjoyable as maybe it should be. Maybe that will change with the trade, but issue to issue, if I did not love this character as much as I
Yeah.
did, I probably would have dropped the series long ago.
And I think too, like going into that first issue of Wonder Girl, we had just come out of Future State. So Wonder Girl Future State, like you said, was so quick and fast paced. It was like we meet the character where she's at. There's no real origin. It's just her sisters are dead. She has to go like rescue her sisters. And so we meet her. We meet Jerry the horse, like, and we just go into the underworld to go get them. And it's there in the first issue in the Future State run. And so then coming into this, it was like, okay, she's in Brazil and she's having conversations with people, and it's also going back and forth to some other lands that are, because we go to Themyscira, right? Don't we see? And where's the other? So anyways, and then it just felt like a lot of buildup, but there's not been any payoff yet. It's like a Dragon Ball Z episode.
Yeah. No, it really does feel like that. And I need more from Yara Flor. And maybe after we get through the slump and she gets her powers and her origin, maybe we'll get back into that fast paced Yara Flor that we all love. But she's not as quippy as we're used to her, and she's just not as fun. And I need more. I physically need more.
Yeah. Especially when we've already met that character. Like just give that,
and we know who she should be, and it's the same creator. It's the same. It's not like it's jumping from one creative team to another where you know, sometimes you kind of lose that, what is that character supposed to mean? This is the same creator. It's all Joelle Jones. We need that magic back. I need Yara Flor back.
Maybe Joelle Jones is really, you know, making sure that she has job security, because she's like, I'm going to draw this out for as long as possible.
You never know.
Work it. Yeah.
Conspiracies. I have two other books from DC. DC really continued to disappoint me this month. There was a lot of titles from them that I was really, really excited for. This next one being one of them. This was Task Force Z. Listen, I love the idea and the concept of Jason Todd being on the Suicide Squad. It's something that I feel like is so natural. And we didn't get that with Suicide Squad Get Joker. I mean, we did, but we didn't. Yeah. And we didn't get that with Task Force Z. So Task Force Z is supposed to be Red Hood leading a Suicide Squad who literally, like, it's just people that are dead and come back from the dead. So we get Man-Bat, we get Arkham Knight, we get Bloom, which I felt was very, very awkward. And we get, I can't even think of, we get Bane. And it's just very weird because a lot of these are characters that in current continuity aren't dead. And I understand that this is like an alternate universe type thing.
Yeah.
But let's talk about characters who have died. You know, people like, I know Magpie is one of those who died. You could do something like Firefly. I believe Firefly has died at one point or another. You could bring some really interesting characters onto this. And it feels like between DC Vampires and between the next book that I'm going to talk about, a lot of these titles are feeling very WB corporate manufactured. It's like, what is hot right now? What is interesting? But then let's not add any sort of personality into them at all. I will say, this book does get an A+ because we get a shot of Jason Todd in the shower and we get to see his butt. So we get to see his butt. So, I mean, I guess like A-, A+ for that, but it's stinky poo-poo story, and I just wanted it to end.
It's funny that like I've literally flipped to that page, and it seems like I really dig the artwork. Actually, like the artwork just feels really dynamic here. Like I think that's just an excellent spread. I have not heard any good things about
very boring,
which surprises me because, like I said, I'm literally looking through it right now and I'm like, man, the artwork seems really fast paced. It looks like the story's going pretty well.
There's no Amanda Waller. You can't have a Suicide Squad type book without Amanda Waller. Instead, we have some other person that I think their name is like Crispin or something, and we never get to see them, and I'm like, this is just boring. I don't want this.
Yeah. I feel like what DC is trying to do is that they're also trying to make it very, like, a lot of their stories are very edgy, like, especially since we got the whole, like, Batman Who Laughs type universe and, like, the weird Joker with the spikes and shit. I feel like ever since then, they've been trying to, like, push it edgier and edgier, but not actually landing it. Like, it looks edgy, but it's not.
But it's not. And it's
bunch of posers. No, I'm just kidding.
Just
sorry.
Very boring.
Yeah.
And then the last book that I have from DC, I wasn't expecting anything good from this, because when it was announced, I kind of looked at it and I'm like, why? And then I realized why. You know, I'm not stupid. Listen, I know why. So this is Aquaman and Green Arrow, Deep Target.
And you hate Green Arrow.
If y'all are new to the show, I can't stand Green Arrow. I divorced his ass. I don't like him. He's just lame, and I hate him. JK, I love Green Arrow, and he's my favorite superhero.
Yeah.
So the other reason why this book is a thing is because this is to celebrate the 80th anniversary. It's either the 80th or the 75th. I can't remember. I think it's 75th anniversary of Aquaman and Green Arrow, because the two of them appeared in the same comic together. More fun comics number. I can't think of the number of it, but it's More Fun Comics, and I'm bad with numbers. And they both appeared in the same issue. This is literally the only reason why we're getting this sort of team up. There has never been any sort of chemistry between these two characters at all. In fact, these two characters, they don't even really like each other, but it's not like a I hate you like it is between, you know, the Flash and Green Arrow, which is kind of like I tolerate you and that's it.
Yeah.
So seeing them team up, first off, I was like, all right, this is boring. Then this book decides to be like, what if they swapped minds but kept the same bodies?
So it's like a Freaky Friday situation.
It's like a Freaky Friday situation, but the more and more I think about what they're trying to do, it doesn't make sense, because as I said, Green Arrow's in his body, Aquaman is in his body because he's got the tattoos, they have their distinct beards, but you have Green Arrow, you know, sitting on the throne of Atlantis, you have Aquaman wearing the Green Arrow threads and wielding a bow and arrow, and he can't breathe underwater, but Green Arrow can breathe underwater, and I don't know. Again, corporate manufacturing in comics is bad all around, children. I don't know who thought that this was a good idea. I don't know who didn't look at the glaring plot holes that this does not work. Not only that, but when our two characters finally do come together, there's no chemistry. There's nothing. There's no, we have to figure out what's going on. It's just, we're there. If you're going to do a body swap situation, you need to do it with two people that are glaringly different, i.e. Green Arrow and the Flash. If you did it between the two of them where they hate each other, or hear me out, hashtag hear me out, Green Arrow and Hawkman. These are two characters that have such a distinct rivalry, especially when we look at their politics. Hawkman, he's more of a conservative know-it-all. Green Arrow's kind of more of an impulsive liberal. And the two for years have always gone hand in hand against their politics. Even when they have to team up, they're constantly butting heads. They're constantly getting into fights with one another, to the point where other members of their team, whether it be Black Canary, Black Lightning, Jared, what's his name? The original Flash, whoever it is, they constantly have to be
Jay Garrick.
They constantly have to be split up from fights. So if you took two characters like these who absolutely hate each other,
put them in there like that big oversized, like, this is our get along t-shirt. Just
this
throw
is our
them
get along t-shirt. I mean, you would have some sort of chemistry here. Don't do it with two characters that don't have any chemistry just because they shared a first appearance together. So it doesn't make any sense.
Or at least, once again, I know I'm saying it a lot, make it a Black Label book, make it a one shot, and this is a 1 in 7. So
I don't even want to think about how they're going to stretch it out for 7 issues. It makes no sense. Nothing happened in the first one, so what's going to happen in the next 6?
I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but I want to know who this dude is.
He's some random dude. We find out that he is probably the one behind the mind manipulation or the body transfer, because at one point he's like this scientist dude and he touches a lizard And then, of course, we see at the end he is now a lizard. So there's an assumption made that, you know, he bonded with the lizard and became a lizard. I don't know. I just want to chaos magic warp it from existence because this is just bad.
Use your Scarlet Witch powers. And I just like, my whole thing is that, like, clearly, like, he was a human. This was probably his, like, fit whenever he was a person. And he's like, I'm just going to continue wearing the same thing. And he obviously went into Men's Warehouse and, like, went to the big and tall section at Men's Warehouse and, like, he's like, I needed to fit over my lizard abs. Like, him and Swallow the Hutt are, you know, using the same tailor. If you're a lizard, why are you dressing the same?
It was just bad. Bad all around. But that's all I have for DC.
Okay. That doesn't sound like a very fun week.
It's not a fun week.
I'm not gonna lie.
It continues to get worse.
With Marvel, you're saying?
With Marvel and with Indie and just all around.
Okay. Like I said, I didn't read any Marvel books this week, so you're gonna have to, like, completely rip my heart. I heard Moon Knight was not that good.
Moon Knight was not that good. Moon Knight, all right, we'll do that right off the bat. Moon Knight was very bland. It was very, Tigra shows up and, you know, they kind of try to have this, like, witty friendship thing, which part of me was kind of interested in because every Moon Knight comic I've read since far has been just himself. I haven't really seen him team up with any characters yet. So it was kind of interesting to see him team up with somebody and someone as kind of not weird, but just so far left field to my baby brain. I realize now that they have a previous history in West Coast Avengers, but I was like, that's kind of a weird team up. But they don't even really team up. She kind of just shows up, is a little bit annoying, unmasks him in front of his secretary, which I think is very rude and does not abide by any sort of law of consent, which is bullshit. But it was very boring. This series started off with such a strong first issue, and it feels like it hasn't been able to follow up since. I feel like this series has also been really weird because it's set up to be a very strong storyline. You know, we see this other Fist of Khonshu come in, and we think that it's going to be Mark Spector sort of battling against that, and a win for Daddy Khonshu's love. But it feels like every issue has been its own sort of anthology type thing with nothing to tie it together.
And, like, especially because the first issue was, like, him in this, like, deep therapy session, and then kind of talked about vampires a little bit from what I remember. And then, or did vampires show up in issue 2, but then in the third issue, they're not really there, or, like, it felt like it skipped an issue, and then it was, like, the old people. I'm really digging the art still in this one. Like, I'm just flipping through it. Yeah. And there's
absolutely gorgeous, and it's definitely by far the best thing that the series has going for it right now is the contrast between, when we just see Mark Spector as Mark Spector versus when he's in full costume and doing actiony stuff as Moon Knight.
Mm-hmm. I love that page right there. That's a good page.
The one book that I don't want to say I loved, because I didn't love it, but I tolerate it, but I overly tolerate it. I kind of enjoyed it. Black Widow number 12. So I've been very, like, on the fence. Do I want to keep it on my pull list? Do I want to drop it? As you can see from this week, I finally dropped Darth Vader. I'm very proud of myself.
Oh, wow.
I finally did it, y'all. But Black Widow number 12, I really enjoyed because we got to see Bucky come back in. We got to see Hawkeye come back in. And it sort of played off of that first arc, and we see these really tender emotional moments between her, between Clint, between Bucky about her lost family. And that's what initially drew me to the series. So it only took us 12 issues, but we're back. And I'm really excited to see where this one leads, because there's not a lot of Kate comics where the final tour, that final shocker moment, that page turn moment, makes me think what's going to happen in the next issue. But this one did, and I'm really excited to see where we're going to go from here.
I just want to say too, Casagrande, I can't think of their first name, but, like,
Lena Casagrande.
This artwork is absolutely fantastic. Like, this is beautiful work.
She's phenomenal, and I have noticed with every issue, there is always at least one double page spread. Sometimes there are multiple double page spreads. And if you're not familiar with the comic book industry and the way that comics are put together, that is very hard to do. Typically with comics, and Cape Comics specifically, because that's usually where you see more of the double page spreads, usually you get one like once an arc or once every other issue. But Elena, like I said, there hasn't been a single issue where she has not done a double page spread, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah. Especially because you're right, because of like the pacing and the way things are done, you really have to make sure that those double page spreads are like worth it, because you're literally taking up 2 pages of a like 20 something page book, making it into like just one thing. So you've really got to like do it. But man, the artwork and the coloring, D'Amico, is that who I'm seeing does the color? No, Jordi Belair.
Jordi Belair.
Yep. So, I feel like this series, you're right, has suffered from that. Like, there's a moment where you're like, am I going to keep this on my pull list? And I feel like the next issue, because it's done that like 2 or 3 times already in the series, where it's like, there's maybe like an issue and a half that's not great. And you're like, do I want to keep this on my pull list? And then you're like, let me pick up one more issue. And that issue does it for you, which I wish would be like every comic. Because sometimes you give it that one more chance and it
doesn't work out for you. And I personally think, and I stand by it, the first arc of Black Widow, probably one of the best Black Widow stories we've had in a while. The second arc of Black Widow, I would honestly say skip. If you did skip it, pick up the third one. Third one is shaping up to be a very, very good arc. I did pick this up, but I haven't read it, and I'm not going to. It's Marauders, because, you know, Emma's very cute. I did notice Phil Noto did the interiors on this, and I was flipping through it, and I just gotta say, I love seeing Phil Noto on interiors. He's a really great cover artist. I usually pick up everything he does covers on, but he doesn't do a ton of interiors anymore with his busy schedule, so it was really cool to like see him do it. And I almost for a second was like, let me read this issue, and then I was like flipping through it, and I'm like, this is already too confusing. Let me know.
Like, hear me out. Read the recent Cable. Read.
I might have
Fuckboy
to.
Cable.
Does he do the art interiors on that? Okay, that's the sealer for me, as I am definitely gonna pick that up. Now listen, y'all, I never ever want to hear y'all again be like, Mars, she don't like the X-Men. She doesn't like the X-Men. Because I bought 3 copies. I almost bought 4. I bought 3 copies of fucking Inferno, each one being $5.99 a goddamn piece. Okay, so you're looking at, what is this, $18 right here?
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't want to think about it. Anyway, but these are gorgeous. Like, come on, like, help me.
I only bought 2. I only bought 2 covers of Inferno this week. So
I bought 3, and I'm probably gonna buy the 4th one at one point or another. Anyway, I'll gloss over it because I don't want to spoil you.
I know, I'm already like going through this, and I'm like, this is so exciting to me.
I needed your fucking help with this, Jen.
I'm sorry.
I read it and I didn't understand it, and I was like, oh, I can't wait for Jen to explain to me what's going on in Inferno. And then she breaks my heart and is like, I didn't read Inferno.
I know. Or, you know what? I'm just going to, without having read issue 4 of Inferno, or issue 2 of Inferno, I'm just going to go ahead and say you would probably know if you read Hoxpox.
Okay, that's wrong. So the one thing, I mean, you might be right, but that's wrong. One thing I did like about Inferno, so this is actually the book that I liked more than the other books. I'll be honest.
But it was still confusing, it sounds like.
It was very confusing. So my biggest complaint with issue 1 was I wanted to see how they bought Destiny back. In issue 2, the first, I want to say like 10 or so pages is how they bought Destiny back. What she did. Mystique. Why Mystique didn't do this before, because it sounds like she's been trying to get her wife back for a while, and the way that she does it is so simple. It's so very Mystique-esque. Yes, it is very gay, and I love that fact. It's very Mystique-esque, and I'm like, okay, well, why didn't you do this at the beginning? because it just seems like the obvious decision, but it's fine. That's how comics go. That's how drama works. Okay, that's how drama worked. Anyway, so we get to see, Destiny come back. Issue 1 left off with, are we going to bring Destiny onto the council? We have to put
the
it
quiet
to a vote.
council.
And we spend most of the issue, it's Mystique kind of going behind the scenes and like manipulating different people that I guess are on the council to swing the vote in her favor. And one thing I like in particular is she goes to Sebastian Shaw and is like, listen, I'm going to make this very, very simple for you. Emma Frost is going to say no. So obviously, because he hates Emma, he's going to say yes. But then she goes to Emma anyway and convinces Emma to say yes. Well, that's fantastic. And I think I like this little cute manipulation.
Yeah.
Inferno should have been is just Mystique burning down the village so that way she can get, her wife back. But then it goes into, John Hickman, X-Men mumbo jumbo. And that's where
I love it. You get the Krakoa network, you get X-Force mission log. It's poetry.
We get more of Moira McTaggart being a bitch. I'm sorry. I don't. If that's your favorite character, I apologize. I've only read 2 issues with her. I have not read Hoxpox yet. I know she's in Hoxpox a lot, but she kind of just seems like an asshole, and I don't like her. Anyway, there's something that happens in the end of this. Also, she touches Emma, and she's mean to Emma, so I don't like that. I don't even know what she did there. But somebody gets invited onto this quiet council. And I won't spoil it. Don't flip to the last page, because then you'll get spoiled.
I'm totally... Okay, I'm still going to do it. I just won't do it.
Why? And people in the chat who read Inferno that are not Jen, because Jen betrayed me this week and can't help me with Inferno, give me a quick summary. What the hell happened in Inferno? What is going on? Help. Baby comic brain. Okay, so it's the same reaction that I had. Is there something that I'm missing because I didn't read Hoxpox? Is there something I'm missing? Oh, I will say this. Colossus with a beard. Listen, Colossus was always one of my favorites. Colossus was a spiritual awakening for my child ass. Colossus with a beard is a spiritual awakening for my 28-year-old ass. So, thank you. Credit to whoever did that. I appreciate you very much. But what is happening? Please help.
Okay, so I've just flipped through this, and I do feel like I'm gonna need to read it 2 or 3 times in order to understand it. No.
But why?
No.
Why should you have to read something 2 or 3 times to understand it? I should be able to read it once and understand it, right? Right?
Well, I think...
Jonathan Hickman, please explain. Please.
I feel like I'm really gonna... I feel like I do love these.
I know that you're gonna love it.
One thing that I don't like about this book, I can already tell by flipping through it. I fucking hate Mr. Sinister in the new Dawn of X stuff. I hate Mr. Sinister. And it feels like in this...
But he's really hot.
Well, in Hellions, I feel like he was extra goofy and not in a cute, nerdy boyfriend type way. He was really goofy and I didn't like it. So I feel like here he doesn't seem to be goofy. And that's the hot Mr. Sinister that my body and soul needs.
I don't know. I don't know what's happening. Please explain. Jonathan Hickman, you can @ me at that comic girl, and you can provide me with a full explanation on what is happening in Inferno. I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I can't wait for Inferno to end because I feel like with Inferno ending, Dawn of X will end, and maybe we'll get something really interesting with X-Men and something that maybe I can fall in love with. Because I'll be honest with you, we've discussed this. My partner is a huge fan of X-Men, and we actually had a really long conversation last week about Grant Morrison's run of X-Men because it is their absolute favorite. And the more and more that they talk about Grant Morrison's X-Men and the things that happen in Grant Morrison's X-Men, despite not being a fan of Grant Morrison, I'm like, I kind of want to read this. I feel like this is my jam. So maybe there's different versions of the X-Men for different types of people. Maybe I don't know, I just need something more fun. I feel like this is very serious X-Men, and I kind of
Okay.
want fun, goofy, but also kind of personal moments with X-Men, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Question mark? Maybe.
So
Is that Bearded Colossus? Oh, hello.
So
He's very cute.
I'm just now remembering that when I was in my shop on Wednesday, because the people at that shop, Nick and Katie, are just like the best. Nick was like, "Oh, you picked up Inferno, but you're not really like reading X-Force right now." And I'm like, "No, I'm, you know, mostly just trying to read like these main titles." And he took it, put it on. He's like, "You need to read X-Force before you read Inferno." And I'm just now realizing that. So what I'm going to do, I will do the homework. I'm going to read X-Force, and then I'm going to read Inferno, and I'm going to figure it out. And then apparently you're supposed to read Marauders. You're supposed to read Marauders after Inferno.
See, and I don't like that. Like, and I understand this is the pain that comes with crossovers and events. Let me just read a story to enjoy it. Also, there's not for a series. I understand this. At least initial first impressions. This is supposed to be a Destiny Mystique, burn it down, our love is beautiful type of series. All for that. However, I feel like I am being personally baited because it feels like every issue we're getting like 4 different covers with Emma Frost. Where is Emma Frost?
Where is she?
Not a lot of Emma Frost. It's kind of like our Trials of Magneto issue with magic on the cover, but there's no magic. Why are there 4 or 5 different covers with Emma? I mean, I like them. My wallet doesn't, but I like them. But she's really not in these books. I mean, she's in this one, I feel like, a little bit more than the last one. But I'm being baited, y'all.
I really just I need this on the cover. I need that on the cover. That's all the covers that I need. Is I just need Mystique and Destiny getting a little smooch in. That's what I need from Inferno. So, like I said, what I'll do, because apparently the reading order, and it doesn't show this in the back, but apparently you do need to read X-Force, then you need to read Inferno, and then you need to read Marauders.
Weird.
Yeah. Okay. Did you read any other?
That's it for Marvel.
That's it for Marvel. Got it. One of the books that I'm, other than what we just mentioned, that I'm kind of excited about, I am really excited to actually read this Darkhold Blade. I did also get, I got the variant cover, the Scotty Young variant cover, and I just think it's so beautiful. Let me see if I can pull it out.
She's got to pull it out of her massive stack.
Yeah. One of the books that I got that I am choosing to just not even read. Sometimes, I choose violence against myself, and I do read these books sometimes. I pre-ordered it, but I'm like, I'm not even going to do this to myself. But I did end up buying Mom, Mother of Madness, issue 3, which is the last one. I'm probably not even going to read it because the first 2 were so horrible. But I just really like this Darkhold Blade.
Oh, that is very cool.
Scotty Young cover. I really liked that. Okay. That's it for Marvel. We're going to DC, or we're going to Indies, people. What books did you read?
I only read 2, and they were 2 that you didn't read. So I'm going to let you have the floor because I know there's a very big book that came out this week.
Yeah.
Let me preface it. I bought it. I did not read it. And the reason being is I'm very behind on the series.
Yeah.
That comes before. I stopped at issue 7, even though I have up to 15, and I'm waiting for the deluxe edition of the book. Yeah. So, I will eventually read it. But until then, Jennifer has the floor with, it's so shiny, and I love it.
So there was a shiny boy, as it seems like Boom is doing, which is pretty cool. And then we do, just the regular one. This one was pretty fun because you probably know that in Something is Killing the Children, which is fan favorite, I think one of the hottest indie titles right now. Erica Slaughter we're doing her origin story right now. So we're getting to see a little bit more of this like House of Slaughter. We're learning, this is kind of a spoiler alert, but we're kind of learning that there are different masks. So there's different colors, and like the different colors mean that you're in like different houses, I guess, and that you have a different task to do. Like you have a different job to do depending on what color your mask is. This character, and I always forget, is it Aaron? Is that his name? Someone in the chat, please remind me what his name is. But anyways, we do get to see his kind of origin story. That's what House of Slaughter is about. I really do think that you could go into this story having not caught up with Something is Killing the Children, and then knowing that we do get to see a little bit of an origin story for Erica, and then read this and really enjoy it. And one of the reasons why, and I hope you don't mind if I spoil it, everyone, this book, it goes gay. We get the gay agenda in this book.
Where's the gay? There's the gay.
So last page, spoiler alert, everyone. We get a little gayness. This other character, Jace, we hear Mr. Slaughter, I don't know, basically saying, the first man I ever loved, ... I'm not going to spoil the rest, but anyways, so I thought that was kind of neat.
So
that they gave
you
that
think
to
I
us.
can read this knowing that I have not caught up? Okay, cool. That's very exciting. Also, fun fact, friends, and that's why I kind of got all excited. So I'm flipping through this, and I'm like, this art isn't Werther Dell'Edera, even though they are credited on the cover. I'm like, but this art feels very familiar.
Yeah.
This artwork is done by Chris Sheehan,
the Autumnal,
who did the art for Autumnal.
Yeah.
So that's kind of exciting because Autumnal was one of the biggest horror hits, I feel like, of last year, this year, because it kind of ran into both. And their style just is perfect, I think, for this sort of setting. So I'm really glad that they were able to jump from, a smaller title over at Vault Comics onto what was probably one of the most anticipated series of the year. It's very exciting for them.
I agree. And I do think that if the Autumnal was published by Vault instead of Boom, it would have been a little bit of a bigger title.
A bigger hit. Absolutely. That's definitely going to be one of those sleeper hits that more people need to pick up.
I agree. I do think that Vault is doing some really good horror stuff, and Boom is a little bit wider ranged. They're doing a lot of different stories. Was the Unkindness of Ravens, was that Boom?
That was Boom.
So I think that not necessarily that the two are the same, but I feel like there's a Venn diagram where they overlap a little bit. The Autumnal and Unkindness of Ravens, where maybe they're we've already got this one, we can't do this one. But I do think that if you're liking House of Slaughter and if you're liking Something is Killing the Children, pick up the Autumnal. It's pretty darn good. What other indie book? Because I've got two other ones.
Okay, I have two. So I'll do one and we'll kind of rotate. So I did read Swamp Dogs by Black Caravan. So this is a Scout imprint. I was really, really excited for this one because the way that it was solicited was gay witches in the South. And I'm like...
In Savannah, was it? Or
in Savannah, Georgia. And I'm like, okay, say no more. I'll take 10 copies.
Yeah.
Nothing happens in this issue at all. Absolutely nothing happens. So we get this really brief introduction. It's like a flashback of Confederate soldiers that are running through a swamp. They're trying to get away from something. One guy decides he wants to stop for a pee-pee break. He immediately...
As one does.
Totally relate. Even though his companions are like, what are you doing? You're going to die if you do this. And spoiler alert, he dies. Then it, goes to our other two companions. They get dragged into a swamp. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. And then we flash to forward day, or present day. We flash forward to present day. And we get introduced to this party. And it's, one of our main characters here dressed up in this really weird cat suit. It's like a Halloween party. A band's playing. She decides to go upstairs, and I'm assuming she's pleasuring herself from what I've seen, which is kind of an odd flex to do at a party by yourself.
Okay.
Is, you know, leave the scene and
I mean,
go
like,
and...
we don't kink shame here.
We don't kink shame here, but it just felt very, very fetishized in this book, the way it was done. Well, then she meets up with our other main character, and they kind of just have this boring conversation. They realize they're both very sexually attracted to each other, and they start making out with each other, and then the issue ends, and that's it. I'm like, so what is the plot? Where is the hook? Because you sold me. Listen, I would be fine with gay girls making out. Listen, that is my jam. I, as a gay girl myself, likes making out. But where is the story? Where is the plot? You know, what is there to make me want to read the next issue? Maybe this is one that will benefit better in trade, but considering how Scout likes to do like 2 and 3 months between an issue, this is not enough for me to want to pick up more.
I think that they specifically do that from issue 1. So they'll do like issue 1, and then like 2-3 months later they'll do issue 2, and then like kind of on a monthly basis continue. One of the things that's kind of getting me here as I'm flipping through it is it feels like the artwork in the first couple of pages feels way different than the artwork in the rest of the book. Like, did they get a little bit lazy? Did they get... Like this page right here, even though it's simple, it's a splash page. It's really just introducing.
It's gorgeous. And I was like, oh, I'm interested. That splash page, I was like, all right, I'm here. This is fun.
But then some of the pages where, you know, there are girly things happening between some of the characters.
Just girly things.
And then it does flash back to like way back when. Yeah.
It was very boring. If you are looking for a Southern witchy vibe book to read, you could read Witchblood. I was going to suggest Redlands.
Oh, Redlands, yeah, you're right.
Redlands literally hits that nail on the head. If you're looking for something more fun, pick up Witchblood. If you're looking for something a little bit more serious that has some really great conversation starters in it, pick up Redlands.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of comments about just like how boring. Horn dogs in the South, yeah.
Yeah.
This one time at band camp, oh my goodness. I was at a party all by myself. Thank you for these comments. Kind of disappointing because I feel like the this cover is absolutely beautiful. I really love that like movie poster style. And then, like I said, the artwork from the first 2 pages feels really, really good and dynamic, and then maybe degresses a little bit as it goes on. So
you know what this cover reminds me of? This is gonna seem so random, but hear me out.
I was gonna say Cult of Dracula.
No, well, I mean, in the same vein where it's like a gorgeous cover and then the inside is terrible, which 2 different companies. So this cover reminds me of Scooby-Doo Zombie Island. I don't know why, but it's giving me that. How dare you? It's giving me that vibe. Listen, how dare me compare it to Scooby-Doo Zombie Island, which is probably one of the best horror movies ever invented. Listen, go watch it as an adult. It's still terrifying.
Which is the title with the witches? With the
Curse of Witch's Curse or something. We actually had this long conversation yesterday because we were talking about how it seems like every Halloween people like myself get very horny for these 3 side characters that pop up. And listen, I'm gonna put it on blast. I am horny 365 all year round.
Yeah, it's not just a spooky season thing. Yeah. Oh, did you mute yourself?
I did, because apparently somebody thought it was okay to mow the lawn while we're in the middle of a show. So I apologize for anything going on. I'm going to try to keep it at a minimum.
That's okay.
For ambiance sakes.
Yeah.
It's very spooky, guys. Very spooky.
It's just a spooky soundtrack behind you.
Just imagine it's like a chainsaw. It's just a chainsaw revving up, you know, spooky sounds. All right. So what else do you have for indies?
So I've got one other one besides this one, but we've got Once in Future issue 21. This one, it feels like the last couple issues of Once in Future have been doing this like chasing the monster or like chasing the villain, and then like another villain shows up at the end or something, where it's been very formulaic, where at the end someone else from the mythology of this like King Arthur's Arthurian legends pops up at the end. And I really do like this blend of like the future meets the past and meets like these characters from mythology. It's a really great story, and I really love the dynamic of these characters, but I feel like there hasn't been an actual story arc. It all feels like singular episodes. So I wish that it would do that. But it's still pretty good. Once in Future, I'm liking this one consistently more than I liked Die. So yeah. What about you? What's your next one?
The last book I have is the Winchester Mystery House, accompanied by chainsaws. The Winchester Mystery House. This is a Source Point Press book, and it is it's a doozy. It is a very, very big doozy. So the story is exactly as it sounds. It is literally just like a retelling with some fictional flares onto it about how Mary Winchester, if you don't know, she was married to the man that basically invented the Winchester rifle, and legend has it that she was haunted by the spirits of everybody who was killed by these rifles, that after her husband's death, they sort of latched onto her and told her, look, I need you to go out into the middle of the West and build this giant house as we tell you, or else we're going to kill you and your family and your children. So there is a house, out on that side that is literally like doors will lead to nowhere. You
and
have
like
stairwells
stairs
that will lead to nowhere, unfinished rooms. It is I would love to visit it one day, but at the same time, I don't want to go anywhere near it because it is a demon house. But it was just boring. And, the idea of Mary Winchester and everything that she went through and everything that she accomplished, it feels like such a ripe setting to kind of take and explore it. And this book doesn't do it at all. There is a book, however, that did do it very well. And that is called House of Penance.
By
Penance.
Tomasi.
By Peter Tomasi, and I believe it's illustrated by Ian Bertram, who did Little Bird. That takes the idea of Mary Winchester and kind of creates its own thing. It takes its foundation, but then it makes its own thing. So if you are looking for a spooky book to read, definitely try picking up House of Penance from Dark Horse Comics, because it for sure is the better of the two.
Yep. And I think that Rich Tomasi and Ian Bertram, like, I love their work, like, independently. Two completely underrated artists. I definitely, like, I don't want to see them work at the big two, because I feel like their work on their independent stuff and like creator own stuff, they would be held back, and 100% appreciate their work. I feel like they do need to be more well known. So it's funny because I have a coworker who lives like behind the Winchester Mystery House, like within a block. So I was talking with them, and it's funny because they were like telling me about some of the stuff, and it's really cool. So I would love to be able to like send this comic book to them. So the last book that I have, the last single issue book that I have here before we get into some comic book spooky season recommendations. The last one that I have on my list is Ice Cream Man.
Oh, I heard that one was good this week.
It was very, very good this week. Like, one, look at that cover. Look at how like just creepy that is. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna open up the A cover.
This is one of those books that I unfortunately missed out on in single issues. And read by trade. And it's one of those series where it's like I always regret not picking it up in single issues, because every time I see something, it just seems so interesting. Because is this the issue where you have to rotate it and read it a different way? Yep. I love that. I think that is so cool.
At first, so I actually like hate reading books sideways, like, and I'll give a pass to Echolands because I really love like J.H. Williams III's artwork is just so dynamic, and I think it 100% works for that like flip book storybook style. But this one, it literally goes through the family tree and what this gentleman has gone through. And it basically walks you through, like, each one he's basically walking you down, climbing down the family tree and going through it. And he's discussing, well, here's my family tree. This person way back in my history, like, familial history, was addicted to opiates. Like, he went to like opium dens, and well, that was my like great grandfather, and then my grandmother, she was addicted to this, and then my father was addicted to this, and just how it got passed down. And so you see him also battling addiction, and the way that this story crafts that with like walking down the family tree, it's so beautiful, and in real Ice Cream Man fashion is just haunting and heartbreaking. I love this series so much, where it's less like spooky, but really just like tugs at those things where like real life is really depressing and real life is haunting, and like facing those things, the mortality or the finiteness of life. That's the real horror. And like this book, I know I've said it before, but like you can literally just pick up a single issue and not have to have read. So you can just pick up this issue and you don't have to read the 20, what is this one, 26? So you don't have to pick up issues 1 through 25. You can just pick up this one. And issue 25 was another one where it's like they were in a plane crash, like, and just this book is great.
That is one of those series that part of me is surprised that it's run for as long as it has. Because we saw the other series by W.B. Maxwell Prince, that was only 5 issues or 6 issues, whereas this one, you said it's gone up to 26 or 27, and it seems like there's no end in sight for it. But I really do like the idea that he really does create these really weird, surreal stories that are somewhat wholly relatable, and like you said, pull at those inner horrors that lurk within that we may all be dealing with. And it makes me just curious to see if and when we might be seeing another type of anthology like Ice Cream Man and like because I feel like that's just in his wheelhouse, where that really is what he's good at writing, so he's going to capitalize on.
I agree, and I really like I like these horror anthologies, like and Silver Coin. But I really liked that, especially because like there's a stereotype about people who like do that clown stuff, is that those people are some of the most depressed people that you'll ever meet. And so I really like that blend of like, on the surface someone looks happy and literally paint their faces to be happy, have those expressions, but are really deep down like facing a lot of things. I personally would really love to see, as someone who's like worked in customer service and in retail for a really long time, I would love to see an anthology of like the horror of working in retail, because it gets real, people.
It does.
So as someone who my first like retail job was at Victoria's Secret, and that is a disgusting job, y'all. Not sexy, not glamorous. It's all, I'm not even going to get into it, but like just go, I think that would be a really fun, like, type thing.
Type story.
Do you have one more book?
I have no more books. It's now time for the best part of the show, which is all of the spooky fun time Halloween horror-esque recommendations.
Yeah. And so these books, we each have a few. I think that this is not an exhaustive list whatsoever.
We each have a few. So I texted Jen this morning and I was like, okay, well, what if you pick 4 and I pick 4, and then we have a total of 8, and we can kind of go from there. As you can see, I did not understand the assignment, because as I was going through the list of books, it just kept growing and growing and growing. And from what I understand, you are very similar. So I think we should just dive into it and maybe go back and forth.
Yeah.
And we
jump
into it.
It's funny because you're like, hey, let's go ahead and tell each other our books just to make sure we don't have any on the same list. And I think we both did the thing of, well, I'm not going to pick this book because I knew that you picked it. And we still ended up picking like completely different books. So I know that I could talk about horror books for a very long time. Most of these ones like are more recent ones. I did a video last year where I talked about like some of my favorite spooky books. I was totally going to record a video and didn't do it this year. We'll see if I get to it eventually. So some of those books that would make it onto that horror list are in here. But most of these books are ones that I have read recently and I feel like are underrated that I really want people to know about. So like spooky recommendations, haunting recommendations, things like that. What's the first one on your list?
The first one I have, and I actually, a couple of these books were featured on this year's Halloween Spooky Spectacular recommendation list, which is now live on my channel. Wink, wink, cough, cough. Go and check that out after the show is over. The first one is Blood on the Tracks. So I'm starting off with a manga because we kind of get this impression that manga is, Dragon Ball Z and Naruto and One Piece and this and that. Blood on the Tracks is the complete opposite. So it follows the story of a young boy and his mother. And his mother is a little crazy. And his mother wants nothing more than his love and affection and will literally murder people of their own family. She will convince him to break up with his school grade girlfriend because she's afraid of the affection that's being shared between the two. This book is just really creepy. The artwork in it is some of the most terrifying, stuff that I have seen in a while. And it's just one of those books where every time I sit down to read it, I'm like terrified because I feel like this is something so realistic. There's no ghost. There's no supernatural, spookiness in it. It's literally just a psychological horror book. And those are some of my favorites.
It's funny because earlier this year, you recommended that book to me. And I honestly had no clue going into it what it was. I just know that you said it's Blood on the Tracks, read it. And the entire book is so uncomfortable. I think that that is one of the things that you really need to have in a horror comic book is something that makes you uncomfortable but still keeps pulling you in, because you can't have in horror comic books, you don't have the pacing. You kind of do, but readers can read at their own pace. In a movie, it's shot and the pacing is done a very specific way, or maybe you have lighting or you have music, noises that contribute to the spookiness and the overall feeling, where
a comic is very different.
A comic is very different. So with that manga, it's definitely, it makes you feel uncomfortable, and it literally made me crawl in my skin reading it.
It does, and you always have those moments because, like I said, it's all about this crazy mother, and it feels like at least once per book there is a full page of just her kind of staring at you, and I know it's coming. I know every time I read a new volume, there's going to be at least one instance where that happens. And I find myself late at night like this and being like, okay, is this the page? And it will be, and it will still even as just a little peek, I'm like, oh no, I have to turn the page. No. And it's just her cold eyes. It stares so deep into your soul. So if you haven't read this, definitely pick it up. I believe they're on volume 6 right now. So it is one of those. I know a lot of people get intimidated by manga with how many there can be. But I definitely recommend this to people, even if you've never read a manga, because it does not feel like that. And it feels like a good horror story set in that culture. That's it.
100% agree. And I think especially too, if you like Junji Ito, I would say pick up Blood on the Tracks, because even though Junji Ito is known for a little bit of the patterns in the artwork, I think of Uzumaki and I think of the spirals, and I not recently, but I read Romina and that was really good. But I think that especially if you like Junji Ito, try out Blood on the Tracks for sure. My first recommendation is going to be Through the Woods by Emily Carroll. So this one, I really appreciate this one because it is an anthology, so most of the stories are pretty short. You've got a story where it's almost like a Little Red Riding Hood, almost, maybe. Not necessarily, I don't know, but like three sisters or three siblings are in a cabin. Their father leaves, tells them, you need to leave. If I don't come back in a day, go to the neighbor's house. And like slowly, like each day goes by and one of the siblings disappears and like leaves. And each of these is just a weird,
and it's the artwork too. It's the way she does her art, the way she does her lettering that kind of fills you again with that sense of dread. And I feel like this is going to be a theme with a lot of these books, is these instances that fill you with complete dread. And with this one in particular, it feels more like a storybook at times than it does a comic, which is not a bad thing.
Yep, for sure. I'm trying to find one that I don't like pull up like spoiler page-ish. But yeah, I just think that the artwork is beautiful. It's haunting, it's creepy, without being jump scare-y or without being like a regular, I don't know. Like there's another one in here where a woman gets engaged to a man and like talks about like the wailing that she hears in his house or in his castle, like from another woman. And it's beautiful. This was a really, really good one. I think that this one, Emily Carroll has gotten a lot of, in the circle, I guess, is pretty well known, but I feel like isn't well known enough because this is really, really good. Okay, what's your next one?
This is my favorite book on my list. I get really excited anytime that I have the chance to talk about it. I'm very proud that I have gotten it into the hands of like at least half a dozen people since I initially talked about it last year. And that is Beautiful Darkness.
Yeah.
I cannot express enough a book that terrifies me more every time I read it, even though I know what's coming. So Beautiful Darkness plays itself off as this very cutesy, whimsical storybook type story. And it's literally about a group of like, I don't want to call them people because they're almost like little fairies.
They're almost like little fairies, or not like goblins, but just like little tiny, like they're mini people.
They're tiny people. And they have to evacuate their home,
because it's caving in on them.
It's caving in on them, and it's revealed on page like 3 that their home is a dead body. And they go through this whole, well, what are we going to do? How are we going to survive? What do we do next? And you have these very like whimsical moments that instantly get turned into something horrifying. Like at one point there's a girl and she's dancing along and she sees this line of ants, and one of the ants grabs her and drags her into a tunnel. You have another instance where you have another little, tiny person where they crawl up into a bird's nest and they see that mama bird is feeding baby birds. And so they open their mouth and is like, please give me food. And then they're literally just kind of like pierced because the beak is so sharp and their mouth is like filling up with blood and they have to spit it up.
The one that got me is that one of the characters is making a dress for themselves, and they see a bird. I think the bird has like fallen down, and they literally cut a bird's wing off to make a part for their dress.
It's very creepy. It's very horrifying. It's the matter of taking very, very simple moments and simple actions and kind of flipping them on their head, because you kind of follow a pattern with this book very quickly where something awful is going to happen, but it's always a surprise is what is going to happen. And this book just gets very creative in its horror. And I picked this book up on a whim years ago, and I have read it probably a dozen times since. And every single time I read it, I'm just like, I've been desperately trying to find something that gives me this feeling. And there is another book by the same creative team that I picked up called Satania, and it couldn't compare. It was so slow, and this is so fast paced that you'll find yourself finishing it within a matter of like an hour or less. and
Yeah.
wanting to pick up more. It's very good.
It is. It's like, the stories of like Sleeping Beauty, and even though like those are kind of like Disney classics, we know that the original stories were a little bit more like gruesome, like Hansel and Gretel, a little bit more gruesome. This feels very much like that, where it takes those like modern mythology type stories, and like I imagine Dwight Schrute from The Office, who's like telling his like grandmother's stories about like Santa Claus actually coming and like stealing kids or something like that. Like that's what I imagined that these stories were originally from, were like cautionary tales. But I don't know, this was creepy, and you do not just from this expect it to be creepy, and that's what makes it even creepier.
So good.
Yeah. Next one that I have on my list, and I actually grabbed this one out of my stack because I meant to grab a different book called The Lolo Woods, and that was one of my favorite books that I read this year. Was on your list, and absolutely incredible. But done by the same Hill House is Daphne Byrne. This book is really creepy. It's definitely in that vein of not necessarily like haunted house, but definitely like creepy Victorian house, and I really appreciated it, where someone gets haunted, and just the covers for this book alone are some of the most beautiful and terrifying. My favorite cover is actually this one. So really, really liked this book. Would highly recommend picking it up, especially if you're into some of like the modern horror, I guess, maybe like movies like The Conjuring, and I can't think of a couple other ones, but really, really solid book. I think this one and Lolo Woods were the two underrated titles from Hill House.
That were probably the best.
That were the best. Like The Plunge was all right. Basket Full of Heads was all right. I think that there was another one that I can't remember, but Lolo Woods and Daphne Byrne, real good.
Definitely better.
Yeah.
So I read this book. I picked this book up at Baltimore Comic-Con. Read it last week because it was like, okay, I want something nice and light, and I can't stop thinking about it, and that is It Eats What Feeds It. It's very, so first of all, the artwork in this book, let me see if I can find a non-spoiler page. The artwork in this book is just very, very animated. Like I felt like I was watching like an animated cartoon, rather than reading a comic. I felt like I was reading something animated. I believe that this artist, I feel like they need to do way more than what they've done, because it very much reminds me of like that Stray Dogs, where it's just gorgeous. So it follows the story of a young boy. Okay, not young boy. He's like 19 or 20. But he decides to take up an offer from this very wealthy, lives in a big old house in the South by herself. He takes up a job offer from her to basically clean and take care of the house and to take care of her. And it turns into this, there's a secret that is hiding and we need to figure out what is going on. He ends up striking up this very weird romance with his, much older companion, but it kind of drives the story and drives the emotions between these two characters, and just kind of seeing the payoff of this book and what it goes to. My biggest complaint is that it's only 3 issues, and this could have easily been like a 6th issue type book, with the plot that's going on, and it needed to be fleshed out a little bit more. But for what I have, I absolutely adored it.
It definitely was a really quick read. I read it single issue by single issue, so maybe that made it feel like a little bit more drawn out. But yeah, reading it in trade, it goes by pretty fast. But another really good recommendation. And I'm really glad that we got Scout Comics on the list, because even though that one, Scout Comics has their own Black Caravan like horror imprint. That one was horror, but I don't know if they just...
It wasn't. It was before Black Caravan was created.
Yeah. Yep. And I want to say hello to Sheena, one of the most beautiful goddesses in the world.
We
Thank
love
you for being here. We love you so much. So, next one that I have on the list, let's see here. I know you liked this one. You didn't love it, but I know that you liked it. Squad. And it was, I really liked it. I knew going into it that it was going to be like high school werewolf squad, feminist werewolf
It's
squad.
like Mean Girls meets werewolves.
Yes. And it was fun, but I know that you were like, well, because I thought that it was going to be a lot more queer than it was. And you're like, well, it is, but not really. So I think going into that, like, lowered my expectations a little bit. I still really enjoyed this. I think what also just really makes this one for me is Lisa Sterl's artwork and the colors in this one just really, really make this book for me. I would 100% say buy this for any teenage girl, teenage person in your life, maybe not necessarily girl,
But a teenage person,
a teenage
individual.
person, non-binary, because I think that this definitely has that Gen Z outlook on things, and I really appreciated it, especially in that like horror sense. So would 100% recommend this for maybe some jaded 30-something-year-olds in your life, as well as the like feminist
And
Gen Zers.
it has some really, really great concepts introduced in it that, you know, we don't often see with the werewolf genre, which I really liked. I just wish, because the concepts that were introduced were so unique and so new, I wanted to see that played upon more. Whereas it felt like a lot of the book was dedicated to just teen drama versus the actual supernatural stuff.
Yeah.
But again, artwork by Lisa Sterl, who, if you don't know, is the artist on Witchblood currently. One of the best artists out there right now. I can't wait to see her on more stuff.
Yep. And this is like a nice little compact, like I feel like it gives a lot, it delivers a lot, while also being like kind of thick, a little bit small.
And it's only like $13.
Yeah, 15, yeah, $14.99. So definitely an easy read. And I think that it also does deal with some of the, like, it goes into a little bit of like classism that like Mean Girls didn't get into. Like, so it does talk about some things like that. Anyways, I really liked it. Would highly, highly recommend it. So what's next on your list?
Next on my list, this is a book I know that we are both big, huge fans of. And that is By Chance or Providence. This one is written and illustrated by Becky Cloonan. And I feel like this is one of those books that is never talked about. I feel like me and you are the only people on this planet who have read it. It makes me sad because everybody should be reading By Chance or Providence. This is another anthology story, but it's kind of got that gothic horror with a little bit of romance into it. And it's fantastic. It's one of those books that, you know, every time I read it, it fills me with this sense of dread, even though I know exactly what the twist or turn, oh my goodness, my hair won't cooperate today. What the twists and turns are going to be. So I know that the first story is kind of like this knight, and he has to go out on this journey because he's been ordered to kill this beast. The second story is about a boy who has to deliver this letter from one kingdom to another, and he finds himself in this sort of haunted castle that is just creepy, and I need to get out of there immediately. But the third story is like this sort of mermaid-esque tale where it's about creatures dragging those back into the sea to get back what is owed to them and the consequences that come when you don't follow orders. But I think what really benefits a lot of this book is Becky's artwork, because again, this is drawn and illustrated by her, and her artwork really does just lend to that gothic sense of style and the design of it, and just pick this book up. It's a treat for sure.
It is. And, you know, I think you were saying that on the back of it, it's described as like a romance, like historical fiction romance.
Image on all of their trades puts a, you know, genre on the back of their book. And they labeled this one as historical fiction and romance. And while I do agree with that, I feel like this should be labeled as a horror book as well, because it deals with some really horrifying themes.
It does. And like just spooky ghost stories. Like, I just imagine these are tales like 200 years ago. People were sitting around and like telling these tales.
These stories.
Yeah. So, and once again, to your point, beautifully illustrated. Absolutely love that book. I've got the other cover, and it's the girl holding the sword, and I'm like, that I want that to be one of my next tattoos. I really love it. One of my next ones, and you're gonna hate me for including this one on the list.
I'm excited. What is the book
What do you think it is? I'll give you like 2 or 3.
I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea. I am so lost on this that I can't think of any sort of book that's going to be on this list. Can I get a publisher?
Yeah. Vault.
Okay, I know what book it is. Okay, I don't... Wait, what? That was not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be another book.
What book did you think it was going to be?
I thought it was going to be The Plot.
Oh, well, I know you hate that one.
I don't hate it. I just was bored by it, but it's one of the most critically acclaimed horror books of the year, and I understand why it is. I didn't like it, but...
Yeah.
Who are you?
I went back, reread it.
What the fuck?
Reread it in trade, and I think the reason why it got a little bit old was because the first issue came out, and then like just reading it month by month, I think reading it all together did it for me. The pacing was a little bit different. So anyways, it's basically about this monster L who has been created, like Frankenstein robot type monster, and someone who works at the facility ends up breaking him out. They kind of form a relationship, but I just think that once getting into the thick of like issues 2 and 3, I definitely felt this book. Yeah. Hashtag hear me out.
Hashtag that's insane.
Yeah. Hollow Heart. I really enjoyed it. I think also like I really wanted to bring a little bit more of like the sci-fi into it. So that's why I picked it. Was between this one or Ultra Mega. So I felt like this one, I think because we were promised a queer monster story, and it is that, but it's not.
Okay. So maybe I'll pick up the trade somewhere down the line, but
especially if you can get it for like $5, I know you'll probably buy this.
Oh, yeah.
When you buy this for $5, reread it. It slapped harder the second time.
Yep. So since we're speaking of Volt, and listen, my stack is what my stack is. We did not talk about order backstage.
Yeah.
This is just we're in a zone right now, and we're feeding off of each other. It's great. Speaking of Volt though, these Savage Shores by your boy Rom V. And this I literally pulled this backstage, and I'm like, she gonna have this. I'm gonna have to replace it with something else. It's whatever. And then you didn't even have it on your list, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? As the Rom V super fan, you did not have these Savage Shores on your list.
I didn't.
This to me is the definitive vampire story.
Yeah.
If you want a good vampire comic, you have one of 2 options, and the other one is actually on this list. But this is it right here. So, these Savage Shores, it follows the story of this vampire who was basically caught feeding in the open and was caught feeding by people. So like the other vampires basically banish him, and they're like, "You can't stay here. You've already caused enough of a mess. We're going to banish you to this small, I believe it's in India, but it's somewhere over, in that general population." And, he thinks showing up, he's a big bad vampire in this land of people, and he can kind of run and do what he wants. And he runs into other monsters because these people have, supernatural cultures of their own and have a monster of their own. And it kind of turns into this really cool supernatural fight between them, but also it has that type of romance in it that kind of drives the story forward. And when you get to that climactic point, it's this big oh shit moment, and you're like, well, what's going to happen now? And the story could have easily ended at that point. Could have easily just ended at that point and had one of those feel bad endings, which I kind of love feel bad endings, but the story keeps going, and it really does lend to such a wonderful payoff. So again, definitive vampire story by Rom V. Probably, if I can be so bold, the best Volt comic that's ever been published. I think it's definitely the best series.
It's funny because you recommended that book to me, immediately got it and read it, loved it. And you're right, it definitely, it's like a vampire monster story, but even more so than that, I feel like it's also this, because a lot of like when we see vampire stories, they're definitely like centered around this like European
Hmm.
type of view, like set in like France or England or places like that. So I really appreciate these like vampire monster stories, but set in
Other cultures.
other cultures and other mythologies. So I'm really glad that we got that one. Um, it's funny because this book was originally not on my list, and I'm like, you know what? You're right. I do need a Rom V book. So to play off Rom V, Blue and Green. I know I talk about it a lot. 100% my favorite book of 2020. The Many Deaths of Layla Starr, also written by Rom V, is my favorite book of this year. But Blue and Green is it. All of these books that he is writing really speaks to like how he can defy genres,
Hmm.
because we just spoke about we just spoke about These Savage Shores and how it's like a vampire monster, like mythological historical fiction. Blue and Green is set in the now, with this teacher who is a music teacher, but when he was younger was a he wanted to be more of a musician, and so he ends up having to like go home, face his past. His mother is dying, so he's coming to terms with like how he as a teacher didn't fulfill his like music career dreams, and also abandoned his family, who then had to take care of his mother. But really it just goes into the mad, it just goes crazy, like this person goes mad. And it's based off of a oh my goodness, I can't think of the musician's name, but it's based off of like his album and like these jazz records.
Ooh.
So good, so haunting. Like I literally read this and it haunted me for days thinking about it. It was so good. So 100% would highly recommend this one, of course. Love Rom V. I've got one more.
Okay, I have four, but
Oh,
technically, okay. So um we'll do a double creature feature.
beautiful.
Because my favorite theme in horror comics is women who become monsters so that way they can protect themselves and seek revenge against those that have wronged them. And
Hmm.
insects and glitter bomb, wait, no, glitter bomb and insects are two very, very great, just examples of that. So Insects, probably like my favorite Aftershock book of all time. It's about these two women. The one woman is in a marriage with her husband, and it kind of sucks. So she decides to strike up an affair with one of her like ladies in waiting or one of her chambermaids. The two decide, because the one is supernatural, she's like, I can kind of grant you this gift and we can be together. So, she receives this gift. She becomes this sort of insect type monster. The two birth a baby together and then they decide to kill the husband. And it's this really weird Victorian blend of just queer revenge mixed with really awesome body horror. And it's
The body horror is what got me the most in that
so
one. It's
good.
grotesque, but it's
It
it's
is. It's
fantastic.
very grotesque, and the rest of the book is because they kill the husband pretty early, and then his family comes snooping in and being like, "Oh, well, you killed him just for the money. We need to figure out what exactly is going on," and it kind of turns into this mystery horror type book. And then Glitter Bomb. Glitter Bomb is another book that I feel like nobody ever talks about. This one is by Image Comics. This, I believe, has 2 volumes, although I've only ever read volume 1 myself. But it is basically about this middle-aged woman who's an actress in Hollywood, and she keeps being turned down roles because she is aging. She's not this young starlet that she used to be or that the studios are looking for. And I believe it's been a while since I've read it, but I believe that there are some pretty awful advances from producers and executives, you know, with the promise of roles and the promise of stardom. And then she kind of encounters this. I believe she dies at one point.
Yeah.
And she becomes this otherworldly monster and creature. And she's basically able to go back to all of the people that have wronged her, and seek her revenge. And again, women who become monsters for the sake of protecting themselves and or seeking revenge, my absolute favorite trope in the world. And again, two very, very good examples of how well that can be done.
Agree. And I agree. I think that Glitter Bomb, because I think that it was done in this era of Image where things like Descender and Saga and Paper Girls and Monstrous and all of those were coming out. I think that it was overshadowed by some of those. So it's still a really great story, 100% underrated. Along with one that I would also say is in that same mark is The Beauty. I think was underrated because it was also being published in that like really prime Image time.
Yeah, you had like Rat Queens and Sex Criminals, and it was like that was your trifecta right there. It was Rat Queens, Sex Criminals, and Saga, and anything that came out at that time. And then of course you had Monstrous and things like that, and Paper Girls, and anything that came out around that time. Like you said, you're absolutely right, because it's something I've always wondered, where these books, I feel like they're never talked about. And that's exactly the reason. It's just because of the overshadowing.
And I think people like us, you know, we read a lot. But for maybe like the mainstream person who's going to maybe have like 5 to 10 things on their pull list, like especially if it's going to be Image, it was going to be Saga, Descender, Paper Girls, like those like main titles. Whereas Glitter Bomb may not have made it onto their pull list, and maybe, you know, didn't get the trade pickup. So my last book that I have here is a really cool anthology. It was originally done as a Kickstarter, but it is Theater of Terror, Revenge of the Queens, Revenge of the Queers, apologize. But it's basically the story written and illustrated by queer creators. Some of them are funny, some of them are really scary, just about life for queer people. It also feels very, one of the things that I love about it is that there are like little homages, like you can kind of see like a Hell Priest from Hellraiser there. And so I really love so much about this. Like, I'm trying to, I think that there's some peen on this page, so I can't, sorry, I just opened up to peen and can't see that.
Not
but anyways, yeah. So there's a lot of really great content in this book. It throws back to so much of what I love about horror, like this like creep show vibe, along with like The Witching Hour and just Tales from the Crypt. So if this one, from what I understand, is pretty hard to get a hold of. So if you can get it, would 100% recommend getting a hold of it. There's also like a host, Peaches Christ. And seriously, please pick this up if you can. So good.
Very fun.
Yeah.
So I have two, but I'll make them very quick, because I feel like one of the books really doesn't need an explanation. But so this is Redneck by Donny Cates, published by Image Comics. Again, I feel like this is another sleeper hit title from Image. I really like this one as another really great vampire tale that sort of breaks that mold. So it's about a vampire family that is set in the South. And you know, when you think vampires, you don't think redneck hillbillies. I know we had things like True Blood and things like that, where True Blood was set in the South, but they were redneck vampires. They just happened to be living in that area. Whereas this kind of takes that country farm boy vibe and has them kind of banding together and facing, you know, the horrors together as they're found out and kind of persecuted. I just think it's a really great and interesting take on the vampire genre, and one that we don't see a whole lot. So, Donny Cates, big boy Donny Cates, y'all.
Let me ask this. So you watched True Blood. Did you read the series, the book?
I read like the first 3 books because I started watching. So funnily enough, I'm actually in the middle of binging True Blood right now.
Really?
I am. So I was really into True Blood when it first came out, and I was, you know,
Mhm.
a scared little kid, and I'm like, what is sex? What is this? And I find myself like restarting True Blood over and over because the first 3 seasons are so solid and I
Excellent.
have so much fun with them. And for some reason, I always stop around season like 5. No,
Yeah.
I stop around season 4, and
Is
I
that the
don't.
Lilith season?
That is the Lilith season, and that's
Okay.
usually where I stop. So right now I'm on season 5, and I am bound and determined to finally see True Blood all the way to the end, even if right now I'm not having a good time. But I'm getting
Yeah.
there. I'm getting there.
It's funny because I remember being in high school and I read is it not Dead by Dawn?
It's like Dead by Doornails and
Yeah.
Dead by Dallas, and it always has dead in the name. It's the Sookie Stackhouse Chronicles.
So I remember reading those when I was in high school, and then I remember my mom and I remember very distinctly, we were driving up to Jacksonville from South Florida, and I remember her saying like, "Oh yeah, there's this new like vampire series coming out on HBO, and like this is it, like blood gets created and vampires come out," and I'm like, "Wait, that sounds like the Sookie Stackhouse series," and then we both realized that's exactly what it was.
Exactly what it is.
Started watching it and it was really good. I think that it suffered as like every HBO series does. It just like kind of goes downhill. I remember reading the first 3 or 4 books in the
And I did that
series.
too.
But then I think that in the series, it also goes a lot more into, spoiler alert, Sookie Stackhouse's like fairy lineage
Which
and
is
stuff like that.
boring.
Which, if you're giving me something about vampires, make that like a 1 book thing and not the. So anyways, I feel like I have wanted to go back and rewatch True Blood, but just, I haven't had the balls to do it, to be completely
You gotta
honest.
do it.
So
You gotta do it. Now here's the
um
question.
yeah,
Here's the question, and this is gonna make or break us. Because
I
I know
know,
you haven't
I know the question and
you
I'm
haven't watched
prepared.
in a
Oh,
while, but I'm sure you still remember. Are you
mhm.
Team Bill or are you Team Eric?
Listen, I am Team Eric.
Oh my god. Y'all, I was so fucking worried we weren't gonna have another show anymore. Listen, fuck
Team
Bill
Eric.
Compton. Fuck Bill Compton.
100% all the way, Team Eric. Let that vampire rail
Actually,
anyone he wants to.
I agree. I agree, Team Eric. But can
Okay.
I put something on the table for you? Because hear me out. Baby Mars watched this, when it was coming out, and Baby Mars was very, very closeted queer. Every time there was 2 females on the screen doing stuff, I went like this, and I'm like, this isn't right. But queer
You were
Mars,
still going.
Queer Mars is like, yo, Team Pam, 100% of the way. Team Pam, please, Pam, please call me. Thank you.
Pam.
Bye.
Yeah. Yep.
Team Pam.
100%.
I did
And
not expect to bond over True Blood today. This is very exciting.
it's funny because whenever you were like, "Oh, we're totally going to disagree on like Team Eric versus Team Bill," and I'm like, "Does she think that I'm Team Bill? Because clearly you would be Team Eric."
No,
So I'm really glad that we were
I
both.
clearly
Okay.
think you're Team Eric, but it's always that 1% chance that
Yeah.
if it can. It
Yeah.
can.
And 100% like Team Tara as well. Like when Tara and Pam.
I just got to that point,
Okay.
and the whole time I'm like, please, 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 let them do it. Let them do it. And then it happens, and I'm like, fucking finally. I was so happy. I'm so happy. So, like I said, I'm on season 5 right now. I'm not having a good time, but we're suffering through it. I want to see how this ends because I have theories, but I don't think I'm going to be right on anything.
Whenever you've given me the courage that I needed to go back and watch True Blood.
Watch True Blood.
It sounds like you have one last book.
I do.
What's your last book? I mean, I have a whole bunch of like books behind me that you can see.
Recommendations in the world.
So if you needed any more recommendations, here you go.
Also, that would not be bad casting. I kind of like that casting, but I'm also kind of happy with who we have now. So, we'll go from there. The last book I have, because listen, if I'm talking about horror comics, I can't not talk about Afterlife with Archie, okay? Yep. And just the Archie horror universe as a whole. So books like Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Vampironica, Jughead the Hunger. which was also featured on this year's Halloween list by Isaac. So go watch it. I Afterlife with Archie is everything I love about pulp horror, because I'm a sucker for pulp horror. I love zombies, I love vampires, and this kind of has a blend of everything in it. So this literally drops our Archie gang into this like zombie quest, and it's kind of horrifying, the events that goes on. We see people dropping like flies. You feel like there's always this dreading sense of doom, and you feel like you're never safe in this book. Which I think is why I really like it. Also, there's an entire issue, y'all. It's dedicated.
Yeah.
Also true. But there's an entire issue, y'all, that's dedicated to Josie and the Pussycats being immortal vampires and getting revenge on people, which spin-off series 1.
There was one, right? I mean, well, there was a Josie and the Josie series, but it wasn't like...
It wasn't vampires. But the only downside to Afterlife with Archie is that even though it is the greatest horror comic of all time, I will say that, we will never get a continuation on it. Or maybe we will. I mean, we got Chilling Adventures of Sabrina back. Maybe
after 2-3 years, yeah.
Afterlife with Archie can come back, but I'm not holding my breath. But this is just, it's a lot of fun, y'all. If you haven't had a chance to read it, please do. It's just pulpy horror goodness, and I love that.
Excellent. So that's pretty much the show, folks. That's all.
That's our spooky Halloween show.
That's our spooky Halloween show. It probably feels very similar to our regular show because we get spooky all year round. So this is me going to be saying like, hey, do the like and subscribe thing if you haven't done so already. Everyone should also be following Scarlet Witch over at That Comic Girl. And so anything else you've got coming up? Anything else you want to talk about?
So again, just kind of dropping, since it is Halloween, new Halloween, the annual Halloween spooky recommendations video is now live on my channel. I am also currently working on finishing up the footage for the vlog content from Baltimore Comic-Con. There's a couple things I have to finish up, and then that should hopefully be up, I would think, probably by the end of this week. And then I am planning, before we get Hawkeye, revisiting my Hawkeye reading recommendations list and kind of doing a, here's 5 books that you should be reading before you watch Hawkeye. So tons of new content coming soon. I also am slowly working on restructuring my Patreon. I'm currently working on restructuring my Patreon, so there's going to be lots of updates on that soon, and hopefully new merch, possibly new merch. So lots of things. Lots of things planned.
Lots of exciting things. I'm really I know that I'm always excited to see your videos. Even though I can never seem to just get my ass motivated enough to do a video or to do editing specifically, because maybe I'll do a video, but I won't do the editing. But your videos just absolutely give me life. Your recommendations, I know the community loves them, but I love them too. So thank you for that. I did go ahead and I dropped Mars's link, so we're about to leave here. I want everyone to go follow, you better go and subscribe, hit the notification bell on her channel, but spend some time, spend a few moments, treat yourself to watching the Halloween recommendation video that you put out, because a lot of work went into it, and it's solid. A
lot of work goes into the Halloween videos, but it's always got ridiculous payoff, so I'm always happy to do it.
Excellent. Well, that's it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to outro us out. Like I said, you can see us here next Sunday. As always, thank you so much. Have a happy Sunday and happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Bye.